9 o'clock on the dot, almost like 9:01. Where's the accountability? That's a big question. Canadians' youth face high unemployment. Where's the money coming from for all these budget expenditures and the economy in a tailspin? All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia. With me, Iain Burns, all the way out there in our nation's capital. Another beautiful day here in the Okanagan as we look out into the sky there. And in the nation's capital,
cloudy again. Bit cloudy anyway. Little patches of sunshine. It's about 22, 23. So mixed bag, I'd say.
Not so bad. Not so bad. Our friend of the show, Chrystia Freeland, on with Vasi Kapelis on CTV's Power Play. And I was going to play this clip.
You did present it as.
Perhaps we're going to play this clip.
Come on, Vasi.
I'm going to challenge the way that you're framing that based on your comments on Sunday. I'll read them directly to you. Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities behind ever higher fences, using private healthcare and airplanes because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot? This is going to fix all that. And what responsibility does your government bear for putting us in that position in the first place?
So this is an important measure. I am glad that we're putting it forward.
The CMHC says housing starts were down 7% nationally in 2023 from 2022 and expects them to further decline this year. Where's the proof point that the money you say that you're going to get from this additional revenue source is actually going to make Canadians' lives better?
Where is the accountability? Where's the accountability? Where is the accountability? Oh, you know, if they were held accountable.
It just doesn't matter anymore, does it? It's not something that is even factored into political discussion anymore, I don't think. It's just gone.
Because they just go off on talking points and talking nonsense and you know, like media spin, right? But at least Vasi Kapelis, one of the better journalists out there, is attempting to hold them accountable.
I just can't get over with Chrystia Freeland. Her entire shtick is to have this like look of grave concern. She's almost like a school counselor that's just heard a very harrowing tale from a student. She's like, oh yeah, oh. It's just like, come on, you need to work on your media face, Chrystia.
And then when Vasi framed that, you know, the elites that, you know, like fly in airplanes and are above all this and live in gated communities, that's you, Chrystia, and the rest of us have to suffer through what you did. And now you're pretending that it wasn't you that did it, and that you're part of the plebs in Canada.
Well, that is how the Liberal Party presents itself. But I mean, that's increasingly implausible, isn't it? It doesn't really make sense anymore. I feel like, you know, Canadians, just like anyone else in the world, would be willing to cut their elite a certain amount of slack if they were good, if they were competent, if they made things work. They made the country safe. They made it run well. And more important than all of that, they made sure that people were wealthy or happy and comfortable and materially comfortable. Oh. But when that doesn't happen, which has been the case with the Liberal government that we've endured over the last decade, people naturally start to get a little bit rowdy and unhappy. And they start to look at people like Chrystia Freeland and they say, why are you living in the lap of luxury when you're, you know, manifestly not particularly competent? You're not very good at what you do or what you've chosen to do with your life. You're not a world star of governance. So what entitles you to these luxuries and these privileges and the power that you have as well? So those questions start to be asked. And obviously Canada's not alone in that. It's happening everywhere pretty much, maybe outside of Switzerland or somewhere like that.
And the Canadian youth are, I guess you would say, they are facing this even at the highest scale. And during the election, they voted for change, and whereas all the boomers voted for more of the same. And so here's a framing of CBC's news or tweet here. Canada's youngest workers are being hit by a perfect storm of economic conditions, inflation crisis, surge in population, and a country teetering closer to a recession as the U.S. trade war wreaks uncertainty on the economy. It fails to mention the out-of-control immigration that was put in place by the Liberals. It fails to mention the Liberal policies that put us at the mercy of the Americans.
I read the Canadian Press article on this as well, and it's equally amusing, where they talk about that again. They use that euphemism, a surge in population, almost as if it's like a surge in rainfall. It's like, oh, the gods decided to rain on us today. What are we going to do? We're going to get wet, aren't we? There's nothing we can do about it. But a surge in population, just to make it as clear as possible, Canada's population would shrink without immigration. There would be fewer people without immigration. The sole cause of population growth in Canada is immigration. Nothing else plays a role. It's all about immigration. So if you want population go up, you increase immigration. If you want population go down, you cut immigration. It's that easy. It's a policy decision. So yeah, it's not rainfall. It's people like Chrystia Freeland sat there at a desk saying, yeah, more immigration, please. And this is one of the many consequences of that rather foolish and ill-advised decision, particularly after COVID or after the main lockdowns in 2022, 2023, to invite an astonishingly high number of people to come and move to Canada. And in many cases, to do the jobs that kids would otherwise do, like working in fast food restaurants.
And the framing of this is disingenuous for sure, because again, it's state-funded media that looks to protect or shield, because it's obvious what the problem is, and it's unprecedented in immigration as well. Unprecedented. That swamped our healthcare, swamped our housing, and increased crime rates, and also results in higher unemployment for our youth.
Yeah, and then in a more kind of abstract sense, metaphysical sense, it's also changed the culture, and it's like made Canadian identity a less clear thing, a less easy thing to define, and that's caused all kinds of problems. I mean, it bubbles up in various ways, like the constant Gaza protests. That's kind of one example, maybe, but that's just because it's so obvious. But there are lots of other cultural changes that occur. You just can't do this. You'd think that these egotistic members of Canada's elite would know that, these boffins, these big brains. You'd think they would know that you can't just increase your population by between 3 and 4% a year through immigration and expect things to work still. You just can't do that. It's not possible to do that. I mean, this is higher immigration than the Americans experienced during the sort of Ellis Island phase of their experiment with immigration in the United States. And how much trouble did the Americans have there? Bear in mind, the Americans were bringing in Italians and Hungarians and people from Ireland and England, like reasonably similar in cultural terms. Whereas in Canada, there aren't any of those people left. They don't have excess populations anymore in Europe. They're dying out, just like Canada is. So the population comes from places like India, where it's, in some cases at least, depending on where in India they come from, it can be quite hard to assimilate them. But it just feels like this conversation that we're having now, for a random YouTube video, it seems to me like this conversation wasn't had by the federal government, who are paid very large salaries and given lots of privileges and power to talk about things like this and to think about things like this. But it just seems like this was just never even on the menu. They just went, let's do it.
I think the bigger issue is the media here. Instead of calling it out for what it is, they just kind of, like you said, like talk about it like it's a surge in population. Like nobody's to blame for it. It was just a surge. And, in a country teetering on a closer to recession. And again, the trade war, the U.S. trade war that wreaks havoc, it was liberal policy that put us in this place. Liberal policies over the past 10 years that put us in this place. There's no accountability. None.
Yeah, it's all just the act of God, isn't it? It's all just like, it's like with inflation, which is another thing listed in that CBC article there. Inflation, again, that's just like something that just like fell out of the sky, isn't it? It's just a lightning bolt. It's nothing that the Bank of Canada did, or the government of Justin Trudeau, whose finances were controlled by Christy Freeland, our good friend.
If you talk to any economist worth their salt, increasing the money supply is taxation. That's what
Indeed.
it is. That's what it is. And again, no accountability for that either, as they doled out the money like crazy, like drunken sailors, which they continue to do. And this is from Better Dwelling. Ontario unemployment hits recession highs driven by excess labor. Imagine that. Driven by excess
labor again, act of God. It's like all these bloody Canadians having kids and increasing the population. And honestly, I think the way you can get away with this kind of nonsense because most Canadians aren't aware that Canada is dying. It's a dying country. It's a dying people. It doesn't produce even close to enough children to survive. It's gonna die. This country is gonna die. That's why they choose to bring in immigration. But people don't seem to get that. They're thinking like, oh, bloody increase in population. People must be having kids. No, it's all immigration. And I think because of that, you can say things like that. You can use these euphemisms and people are just like, oh, okay, surge in population. All right, well, I guess I don't have to think about that anymore.
And there now, Ottawa moves to prop up unemployment in the rough summer jobs market. So there you go, doling out more cash for creating jobs.
6,000. 6,000
jobs.
Yeah,
6,000. That'll be, again, just enough to get to the podium to talk about some nonsense and nothing that really matters. But again, just to stand at the podium and look concerned like Christy Freeland does there and look concerned and say how you're dealing with the issue when you're dealing with nothing, really.
So unemployment rate 20% among students. 6,000. What do you think? Will that even move? Would that even get you a 0.1 percentage point movement on that? I don't think it would. So it's just, I mean, it's a news story, okay, and we reported on it as diligent, conscientious journalists. But it's a news story, but it's not a story. It's just nothing, isn't it? Nothingness.
What it gets you is time at the podium to say, look what we're doing. Look what the Liberal government is doing.
Yeah, and what it gets you is when somebody like Pierre Poilievre or the Green Party or whoever it is, or the Bloc, when they stand up and say, oh my God, look at all these unemployed students, it gives your little minions, your little urchins in the Liberal Party the opportunity to say, actually, we've increased the Canada Summer Jobs Program by this amount. And then they can fiddle with statistics. They'll say something like, by an astonishing 15% or something, and it cost us this many millions of dollars. We're taking it seriously. Are you, Bloc Québécois? And that's what it's all about. It's literally just to put something in the mouth of mouthpieces, liberal mouthpieces, so that they can pretend that they have a sort of comeback.
And it's also puts something in the tweets there from the state-funded media as well. Pierre
it's part
Poilievre.
of the background noise for sure. It counters the arguments from the other side. Yeah.
And here's Pierre Poilievre pushing back. He urges Liberals to reduce immigration to put severe limits on population growth. And he's urged the Liberals to bring down immigration. We talked about it yesterday. That there's 500,000 that are supposed to go home, and the Liberal minister says, well, they're supposed to go home on their own. Okay. And they don't. So now what? And it's responsible for 98% of all population growth. And the population is growing out of control. Our border's been left wide open. Free flow of drugs, illegal immigration, human trafficking, and much worse. And
the other 2%, by the way, 98% immigration. That 2%, I mean, it fluctuates depending on the year, but it's usually about that. This is from, I think that's from the most recent data, the 98% one. But that 2%, that's not like Canadians having kids and the population replenishing itself. That's just people who are like living to be 105. And so it's just people getting older who just hang around longer. So it kind of distorts the population a little bit, and it makes it seem like it almost makes it seem like there's growth or something like that, but it's not growth per se. It's just medicine has advanced to such an extent that people are living very long lives now and living right into their 80s and 90s and, even hundreds.
You and I have talked about this many times, but again, here's Canada's per capita economic dead last. Dead last.
Wow. Yeah, we've seen that a lot, haven't we? That's from, the IMF. Okay. So there's updated data, I think, but it'll be very much the same, I imagine. And that, again, that is, I mean, I don't know, this isn't I don't know if you did this intentionally. I don't think you did, but this is another story that's about immigration fundamentally, because GDP per capita, that's like
Yeah.
how many apples are going to be given out to a group of, I don't know, 10 people or something like that. If you increase the number of people to 100 people, that's a lot fewer apples per capita. And that's basically what that is. It's a story of introducing millions of people into Canada, and then sure enough, the wealth per citizen on average declines.
And we've talked about it many times how bad Europe is and how bad Germany is. And look at Germany outperforming Canada. And if you took out, according to this tweet here by David Knight Legg, that if you took out Alberta's economic engine, we would be in the red.
I mean, some of these countries here, Italy, talk about countries that are dying. Italy is dying at an even more dramatic pace than Canada, has some of the worst demographics in the history of the world. So does Spain, but they're still getting like double-digit per capita growth. Like, what the hell? At this point, you should be looking at that and being like, okay, that's embarrassing.
But if you're part of the liberal spin machine, you say you make up different stats, because stats you can play with all day, and they'll tell you, well, again, according to many of the liberals that stand at the podium, they'll tell you that Canada has the strongest economy in the G7.
Well, I haven't heard that lately, but what I have heard is we are gonna have the strongest one. So it's more of a promise. Will it be fulfilled?
They've said it many times during the campaign that they have the strongest as well. We got another piece from here. This is the former PBO and Kevin Page. He did just talking to CBC here, David Cochrane. We're going to play this clip.
Meeting and the process there to build big on accelerating national projects, and some of that could require federal money on unlocking some of those infrastructure projects. We don't know yet, and there is the tax cut. I mean, since we last spoke, well, things have changed. There is going to be a budget in the fall, but you've got Parliament voting on all of these things, being asked to move on these things on the supplementary estimates, and we kind of don't know where the overall fiscal health is. I mean, how challenging is that for you, for banks, for bond raters, and for members of Parliament and Canadians?
Well, I think everybody wants to see a number, and in the vacuum of a number in terms of the fiscal position of the government, what is the size of the deficit, the size of the debt for 2025, 26, what do those interest payments look like? So I think like the pressure is just mounting for the government to release that type of information, if only for 25, 26, and if only for the announcements that they've made recently, and then come back in the fall with a more fulsome document. But I mean, clearly the bond rating agencies, they want to see this document, and I think, for us to hold on to our AAA credit status, I think it's important to put out have that kind of transparency. These are big, as the Minister of National Defense highlighted, a $9 billion cash increase to defense spending. That's enormous.
Do you think, though, that the AAA credit rating could be vulnerable here with the pace and scale of what we're seeing? Because I know that was a real third rail for Chrystia Freeland when she was the finance minister, that, whatever guided, whatever spending and expansion of the government they did, she never wanted to put that at risk. Do you think we're in that situation because of the economic uncertainty caused by Trump and this spending plan?
Well, I think there's these risks exist from bond rating agencies. I think I think people also understand that we have this change. We have a new prime minister. We have this G7 meeting. There's been meetings with.
Yeah, you can go watch that full clip on CBC if you're so interested.
That would be one hell of a climb down, wouldn't it? If Carney was forced somehow to put out like an emergency budget or something like that. That would be a disaster for his reputation as, the god of global finance. What
I found amusing was where Cochrane says that Chrystia Freeland had the guardrails in place. She blew through those guardrails. Anything
to do with Chrystia Freeland is just inherently funny, I think.
She blew through those guardrails.
She is the comic relief of Canadian politics.
She blew through those guardrails like they were nobody's business. Anyway.
And then when she resigned, she said that it wasn't really her fault. And she was, she was responsible. It was silly, Justin.
And it said that the Liberal Party had spent the last 10 years, wasted the last 10 years on virtue signaling and identity politics. Her words, not mine. Melanie Jolie had a candid conversation with Unifor's national president this afternoon. Together, we were standing up for our steel and aluminum industries and protecting good jobs that depend on them. Another one that should be just basically a meme factory. This lady with her, the Uniform national president, we played that clip just recently where she wanted to seize assets of Canadian companies looking to leave Canada. Just
a couple of real smart ladies there sitting down. That's a real meeting of the minds, that, isn't it?
That for sure is putting confidence in people with money in Canada that they're going to invest in Canada because they can look forward to Melanie Jolie and this Lana Payne there seizing their assets at a later date if they decide that it's not working for them.
I mean, we talk occasionally about collapsing trust and faith in institutions. Is it any wonder when they're headed by people like this? Really? Do these people sort of spread faith around? Do they? Do you think that's what they make people feel?
Do you think that's a good partnership, like the union and the employer there, whatever company that is? When you say you're gonna, like, you want the government to seize their assets, do you think that's a good starting point?
It is in 1917 in the Moscow area, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, Holly Doan put out this piece here. That's the second defector in a week in the Senate. There you go. That's two.
There you go, indeed. But I still have a huge majority in there, don't they, the Liberals?
Well, they appointed a bunch. Trudeau did a bunch just before he walked out the door.
Yeah.
Taking that bag of cash with him. Another piece here from Better Dwelling. Canadian real estate prices rose 7 times faster than wages since 1981.
But the housing minister says he doesn't want to see prices fall.
There you
Good
go.
lad.
And we got a clip here, and this is this pipeline. Remember the promise: Canada will be the energy superpower. And here's a clip here with the energy minister and Rosemary Barton of CBC.
Speaking of British Columbia, they are not interested in any further pipelines going to the West Coast. If a province says we don't want this, is this dead on arrival, these ideas that the Premier of Alberta has?
So I think what we heard when we were in Saskatoon is that we're looking at a totality of what happens. I think if there is a hypothetical oil pipeline with nothing else, we've heard the answer. There's a whole bunch of things that can be done.
Ways to convince them to do it. Is that what you mean?
There are all kinds of things that what I saw was all of the premiers coming together saying, hey, if we all work together, we all do things that help.
Premier Eby wasn't there, so I'm not sure that that's the case for him.
his deputy premier was there, and I'm not going to speak for the Prime Minister or the Premier of British Columbia, but I think they talk fairly regularly.
So you don't think that a no from BC is an actual no? That there's possibilities there?
We're talking about a hypothetical project.
Sure, but the idea, all of them are hypothetical, or most of them are hypothetical.
What I heard, what I heard in Saskatoon was everyone saying, let's look at real projects with real proponents. Let's figure out what the end goal is, and let's find a way to get there.
Okay.
So, how's the clarity for you?
I was just going to say, like, can you imagine speaking like that yourself? Can you imagine what that must do to your organs? It's like acid spraying inside of yourself. It must really hurt him to speak like that. Never mind us. It hurts us considerably as well. But just even within this like sad, stupid, stultified media political landscape that we have here in Canada, even within the rules, you could still try and speak like a human, you know? I mean, can you imagine like in a normal setting in life using language like that? It's just like, it's sort of like, do you want fries with that? It's like, I think the noise coming out of the back of the car is that potatoes and vegetables of that kind are not necessarily something that we do not like. It's just like, shut up, just speak English.
I think one of the things the key word in there is like you have to look at the totality of the projects. That meaning, you can have an oil pipeline as long as you do the carbon capture we talked about earlier. You build the SMR, which takes 10 years, and that you do the carbon capture, then you can ship some oil. So like for when? Never?
Yeah, if you kick the can down the road for 20 years, then you can not have the pipeline in 20 years.
The theme of today is accountability, and here we have Stephanie Kuzi with a little bit of chatter about the Arrive Cam and all the money that's being spent and unaccounted. That the Auditor General there brought forward some stuff there, and everybody's just looking around and wondering who's going to be accountable for it. Like, who's going to get fired? That's the question. Well, let's play this clip. We're going to get there. Maybe. We can talk about it a bit here while we're getting there. You just go ahead and play it when you get there. You're there.
Auditor General made it very clear that the rules are clear, and yet the Liberals seem to be incapable of following the rules and enforcing the rules. Likewise, this House passed a motion whereby we agreed that we should get the money back, and yet we have yet to see a cent from GC Strategies. When are we going to get our money back? When are Canadians going to get their money back?
There you go. Federal managers may have breached that act of parliament in awarding these sweetheart contracts to the millionaire Arrive Can supplier. I mean, this thing is just abysmal. And then where's the accountability? Where is the accountability? When will we see some accountability?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't hold your breath.
We have another clip here from Aaron Gunn. We'll see if we can play this one here. What's that? Oh, it's just lagging a bit here. But let's see if we can get it here.
Island Powell River.
$64.5 million. That's how much taxpayer money this Liberal government gifted their friends over at the top Arrive scam contractor. Friends, Mr. Speaker, who are now under RCMP investigation. Yet the Trudeau ministers responsible for this scandal, far from being held accountable, have actually been promoted to the Ministers of U.S. Trade, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Jobs. So my question to the Prime Minister is, when will there be some actual accountability for the millions of dollars in fraud, and when will the hardworking men and women of this country get their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
That's a good question. I like that question. When will we get our money back?
Yeah, never is the answer if he wants to know the answer. But I think he already knows that answer, doesn't he?
GC Strategies was just like as two guys in a basement, actually, and they're acting as middlemen. You know what I mean? It's just like
COVID was just a bonanza for people like that, wasn't it? It was like a dream come true for a certain kind of person, just to make so much money for nothing.
And then this tweet here from Michael Barrett: bombshell revelation from the Auditor General. The Liberal government was doing business with favored contractors without any security clearance. No proof of work, potential security risks, and $100 million paid out anyway. When will Canadians get their money back? You know, if you owe the government money, they're coming to get it. But if it's $100 million or $5 billion in a tax charge, maybe not so much, right?
Yeah. And certainly if it was obtained, if the contract was obtained during an emergency, during a panicky period, and you wonder why certain members of the financial elite and the business elite often push a lot of kind of crazy ideas and try and scare people quite a lot. Maybe it's got something to do with this, because when people are afraid, the government's afraid, there's a bit less scrutiny on your garbage bids that you put in to try and feather your own nest.
Or
Quite successful, isn't it? I mean, you can look at a lot of people who hype up climate change and say how the world is gonna end imminently if we don't give $500 million of taxpayers' money to my company so I can go and build some solar panels. It's like there's a lot of money to be made in hysteria, isn't there?
Yeah. So there's a lot of meat on this bone. There's a lot of meat on this bone. So the question to people is, how much will our national media, state-funded national media, dig into this? How much attention will they put on this? Because I don't know if anybody that got fired yet, and like these cabinet ministers were like, they're still cabinet ministers. So where's the accountability? Where's the money back? Where's the accountability? Where's the charges? And the GC strategy, this is another tweet here. GC Strategies Auditor General report out $64.5 million in federal IT contracts with a company that doesn't do any IT work. Why should they? They were just a middleman, subcontracting. Yeah, there you go. And then 46% of the time, the government couldn't even prove the work was even done.
Well, I mean, the biggest promotion, or the most interesting promotion that you're referring to, people being promoted, that has to be Anita Anand, doesn't it? Who was responsible for so much during the COVID era, and certainly procurement. That was kind of her thing, wasn't it? And she was praised so much for her job getting hold of vaccines on that side of procurement, but for some reason not so much when it comes to things like this. And yeah, she's not only has she been promoted, but like I've said many times, she just has this like golden reputation within the Liberal Party, which seems to spill out into like the CBC studio and some other at some other media outlets where they refer to her as like the golden child, like she can do no wrong. But it seems to me that there's rather a lot of evidence that she's done a lot wrong and not all that much good, really. But there you go. She is our overlord.
And then there's Holly Doan from Blacklocks with her tweet. I have no reason to believe this is unique. Auditor General says managers have breached Act of Parliament in awarding sweetheart contracts to millionaire ArriveCan supplier that are under investigation by the RCMP. There you go. There you go. Karen Hogan, the CPA, CA, the Auditor General in Canada. And they asked her, the question is like, has she went after or looked into the ArriveCan side? She said, well, I'm only employed to look at what the government spends. I don't get to look at the other side of that transaction. I think they should get some forensic auditors and maybe have a look at the other side of those transactions. I think that if the RCMP don't have forensic auditors, maybe they should employ some. I'm sure they do. But they should let the public know what's going on that side of the transaction.
You'd think that would be in the public interest, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. And then here's another one that Holly Doan of Blacklocks, they exposed. The federal manager spent 8 months planning a $70,000 Hollywood party at taxpayers' expense, including cost to hire publicists for red carpet management. Look at that, eh? And they only bailed on this when Blacklocks exposed it. There you go.
And there's a clue as to why the federal government absolutely despises Holly Doan and Blacklocks.
They call her, what do they call that publication? Yellow journalism, and they call us not even worthy. So anybody that actually acts against is degraded or demonetized or all kinds of, take your audience away. And anybody that promotes obviously gets a raise. Who got a raise after the Liberals won? Who got the raise?
Most of them.
No, CBC, they got a huge raise, right? They got and what did they do? What did they do immediately with that raise? They didn't give the reporters a raise. They gave the executive team a raise. Why not?
Well, a lot of them have swimming pools that haven't been refurbished in like 5 years, I imagine. In some cases, maybe even like 7 years. They need major refurbishments on those pools.
Yeah, there you go. But they definitely no different than Melanie Jolie's bar tabs when she goes overseas. Like she definitely knows how to fill out expense reports. And then Holly Doan had another story, I didn't put it in there. Whereas if you actually work for the Canadian military, and if you're just like one of the guys out there, and having to travel around, and you have a $3 parking ticket, it can take you like half a day to fill out a form to get your $3 back. Right?
Yeah.
making sure the people that want to get into $3 for their parking ticket back don't want to do that. But if you're, like doing these types of things, the money is just, just flies off the shelves for you.
And you don't even have to fill out your own expense forms. You've got an army of servants to do that for you.
Yeah, so just get her done.
Yeah.
Get her done. Peel's single largest drug bust in history, and 6 out of 9 people arrested are already out on bail. We got a clip here for you. Let's play this clip.
Of the 9 people arrested, 3 are still awaiting bail hearings, and 6 have had their bail hearings and have been released with conditions.
There you go. And then here's a picture of the 9 gentlemen that were busted for the largest drug seizure in the history of Peel, and they're out. Look at that. Why not?
And why not? Yeah, exactly. Why not? Obviously, all upstanding citizens.
Yeah, and I didn't put that. I don't think I put the one in here when we get to BC, where like the judge, the guy that had child porn, he said it was just a minor collection, so he didn't get it.
No, what was the word? What was the term? Modest, was it? Was it modest?
Yeah.
Modest collection of child porn. You just got to love the judiciary, though, haven't you? You've got to love them. You've just got to you've got to praise them. Only praise for the judiciary. Obviously, you can't say anything bad about the judiciary. That would be weird. Obviously.
So fentanyl is in the drugs, and that is one of the biggest reasons that the Americans are attacking us in trade. And here you have the largest drug bust in their history in Peel, and they're out on bail already. And what does that say to the Americans? How serious we're taking it?
Depends which American you're talking to. If you're talking to the blue half of America, they probably like it, but not the ones that have power. Yeah, they don't like it.
Like how serious are we taking this drug problem? Doesn't look very serious, does it?
How serious are we taking any of the problems that we face? Anyway. Would be the natural follow-up there, I think.
And here's another one that the Liberals need to own. Canada's going to buy those 88 U.S. built F-35s. But now, skyrocketing charges, shortage of trained pilots, lack of critical infrastructures. I think Harper ordered those in like 2010. And they're supposed to be delivered, and Justin Trudeau, when he came into power, he canceled them because he said they were too expensive, which was a lot cheaper then. And then in 2023, I believe, he said they reordered them. And then when Carney was there, he was talking about canceling them or reevaluating them. I mean, 2010, they ordered them. It's 2025. Are they going to get them when they're out of date? Are they going to? Why don't it just go to, like you said, go to Saudi Arabia and buy them in a garage sale while they move up to the newer stuff?
Well, they've already unveiled. They've unveiled the next one, and I think even the next one after that, haven't they? Like
that's what I mean.
47 or whatever Trump said it was going to be called. Like it's quite right that this technology is going to be out of date, and we're just going to be sat there with this out of date technology while the Americans are flying around like 2 generations forward, like vastly superior aircraft.
Yeah, well,
it's just yet another shambles. But the thing is, these are people, the elite here in this country, the administrative class, whatever term you want to use. They can't do anything. They can't do anything right. Like literally, they can't do anything. They can't even keep criminals behind bars to keep us safe. They can't even protect the border. They can't do a thing right. Why anybody assumes that they'd be able to buy dozens of very expensive aircraft and get that right, I don't know. I mean, the natural assumption to make is that they're just going to get everything wrong. It's not ever going to be a success because the quality of the person is so low. And obviously the systems are completely stupid as well, which just exacerbates it.
And they politicize everything. Everything's made on a political angle. And of course, the number one thing right now is, does it tick the box of can we blame Trump? Let's go with that. And
well, you're talking about 15 years. So if that's right, if it was 2010 when these were commissioned, you got so much to choose from. Then you've got Trump 1, Now you've got Trump too. You got COVID in there. You got Ukraine. Climate change could easily be shoehorned in there somehow. And you've even got like the certain financial crises around that time, early in the 2010s, weren't there? I mean, the options are just, they're just everywhere, really.
I mean, realistically, if I was there right now, I'd be looking at the drones, because that's where it's all going to, right? I'd buy maybe half the jets and focus on the drones. But we have Evan Solomon, who's the head of AI, and then I watched him when he was and he walked out there in the Parliament, their hallways there, and they asked him a question on AI, and he gave a Melanie Jolie answer like you wouldn't believe. It basically said nothing, and that's the guy that's looking after AI. You know, we have to work together. Whether we just, and he used a bunch of words, and I was just like, it meant nothing anyway.
As long as he's got the buzzwords, then that's fine by me. That means that he's the real deal.
You could tell right away that he had no clue what he was talking about. That's what you could tell right away. Anyway, and we're going to put this in here every day. We don't care until somebody listens. Online News Act in Canada still exists. It must be coming up on the 2-year anniversary. It's in June, I think mid-June. The Online News Act that is crushing local independent media, and the government is selectively funding certain media, including the CBC, CTV, and those ones like that, while they crush local independent media and take away our audience and endanger our communities by not allowing us to post online when there's wildfires and things like that. So there you go. Why is it still enacted? We don't know the answer to that. And then moving on to our more international stuff here. Sounds like Trump just put out this, that they got to deal with China. And I think that's one of the biggest things the market's looking for. They got to deal with China subject to final approval with President Xi. Magnets and all necessary rare earths will be supplied up front. China likewise will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using the colleges and universities. And we're getting a total of 55% in tariffs, and China's getting 10%. So the tariffs are still there, and they said the relationship is excellent. So I don't know. We shall see.
Well, there's also, we didn't put it in, we haven't like put it on the menu for the show, but there's also a story that's been released by the CBC just this morning, like 20 minutes ago or something, suggesting that a deal is very close. Oh, well, not necessarily very close, but a deal is like, there's a document that is being exchanged between Washington and Ottawa. And that, you know, therefore we can sort of infer that a deal is relatively close.
Well, it sounds like the Financial Post and Reuters is reporting that there is a deal with Mexico as well. They're saying that that Trump would remove the 50% tariffs on steel for Mexico up to a certain amount. They'd be allowed to ship a certain amount. So it sounds like that deal is close too. So he did promise lots of deals, and sounds like some of those deals are starting to come through. We'll see if they close. A new Ledger poll puts 49% of Canadians agree that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, compared to 21% who disagree. The Liberals say 64% agree it's genocide, 15% disagree, and the Conservatives 37-33.
Mad that. I think, I mean, I'm not too surprised. I am surprised that 50% of all Canadians say that. I'm not surprised that the Liberals are down for that. That makes sense to me. Just look at the way that the Carney has been behaving. You know, he was in a mosque, wasn't he, or something like that last week. And a lot of viral clips went around because he said something like, what did he say? Muslim values are Canadian values or something like that. And for, you know, that upset a few people. But I think the most interesting part of that visit is when the guy that introduced Mark Carney said, there's a genocide going on in Gaza right now. And Mark Carney was just mum. You know, he had nothing to say. Just, you know, he was just like being pole-faced. And that sort of tells you that the Liberals know. They know that their supporters believe this. But, I mean, needless to say, it's very, very controversial. And Israel and the IDF and, you know, even left-wingers in Israel, because Israel is a very diverse democracy where they have lots of arguments all the time. Left-wingers in Israel deny the idea that it's a genocide. They think that the majority of them, anyway, I think that's a ludicrous thing to say. But here we are. I mean, I can't help but think it's to do with the media coverage, though, because that's, for most people, it's CNN, maybe CBC, if anybody still watches that, New York Times, Globe and Mail. That's who they're going to for their information about the Israel-Palestine conflict. And the coverage has been, it very much concords with this idea that there's a genocide going on.
In the U.S., Terry Moran from ABC News went on to a late night rant, got into the sauce maybe or something, went on a late night rant on Trump and Stephen Miller, and they axed him. They axed him to leave. They axed him to leave.
Dear me, that's not good.
They axed him to
What are
leave.
they on about? At ABC, we hold all of our reporters to the highest standards of objectivity. Shut up.
His contract was coming up. ABC News is I think, and they're all getting sued. So I think they were just like, we're not going to take another lawsuit. We're just going to axe him to leave. And there you go, axed.
I mean, another theory. I don't know anything about this man, and I don't know anything about ABC's like C-suite or whatever. But another potential theory is maybe they didn't really like this guy anyway, and he was like somebody that was unpopular among executives, and they thought, all right, this is a good opportunity. Let's fire him.
Well, according to the employees at ABC, he was well loved and well respected.
Well, they say that about everybody, don't they? But I'd like to know if that's true.
And then this guy's been sent to the U.S. to face charges. Pakistani citizen who was living in Canada has been extradited to New York, where he's accused of plotting to carry out a mass shooting at a Jewish center. That's been advertised heavily in the U.S. as well.
That's a good bit of immigration policy right there, isn't it? Bringing in people like that. Good job, team.
And that's one of the things that Homan and Tom Homan and Kash Patel have been saying, that Canada's been the leak in the northern border for terrorists. So,
well, I mean, there's a lot of very dodgy people for sure. I mean, the evidence is in. There's a hell of a lot of dodgy people who have come to Canada.
Well, there's those 9 right there that we showed earlier. Maybe, I don't know. But we just let them out, in and 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 out. And this one here, this one is actually quite hilarious. We're going to play this because here's one of those polls. This guy, I like watching this guy on CNN. He's probably my favorite guy on CNN because he always he's very animated. We're going to try and play it.
Immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically, about Donald Trump?
Yeah, so you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this, Trump's vote share in presidential elections among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this, in 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote.
He's like the best guy on CNN. He's very animated. And then the other CNN host there always makes the face, because they don't want to believe those stats all the time.
Yeah. I liked his, like when he did that, swoosh.
He's quite hilarious all the time because they're just like, I can't believe that. And it's their polls.
But that point,
right?
I mean, I certainly can believe that. I mean, if you come from a country like Latin America or Asia or whatever, that's where most immigrants to the US now come from. It tends to be the case that you're coming from a country that's nowhere near as orderly and as wealthy as the United States. You don't want the country that you move to become more like the country you left, do you? I mean, in most cases. Otherwise, you wouldn't have left.
Talk to Anita Polyev. See what she has to say from Venezuela. Yeah.
Indeed. She's talked about that quite a lot, hasn't she?
Yeah. And We don't have anything about the riots in LA, but they put that curfew in place reluctantly. I think that the Mayor Bass put it in there, and then sure enough, fairly quiet last night. Imagine that, eh?
Still a bit of looting, a little bit of modest looting.
Well, I mean, if more people should take on the online looting, it'd be easier on the businesses. For sure. President Trump, there was an interview. Sounds like the big breakup, the one that broke the internet and gave the Democrats so much to hope for. Looks like it's come to an end, and they're making up. And here's a clip here from the President of the United States.
But, you know, it is what it is that happens. Things like that happen. I don't blame him for anything. That I was a little disappointed.
Could you reconcile?
Say it?
Could you reconcile with him, do you think? Could you forgive him?
I guess I could, but, you know, we have to straighten out the country.
And anyway, Elon did apologize in his own way last night as well and said he regrets posting many of the tweets that he did. And then here's another tweet from Trump saying he's open to reconciling with Elon after seeing his latest posts. Elon knows I love him. There you go. So the bromance is back on.
I feel like he's not going to trust him now again, is he? The way that he did before. Because
I don't know.
And I think the thing that's done it is the Epstein reference, where he basically cashed in on his role within the administration, didn't he? It was kind of like, I've been there, I've been in the White House, Trump's in those Epstein files. It's kind of like, that's a violation of trust, I think.
But again, if you look back, and J.D. Vance called him, I don't know if it's Rubio, both Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance called him things like Hitler and stuff in the past as well. So Trump is...
Indeed, yeah. But then that's the media game, isn't it? That's that's like stupid. That's just theater, and they know that's theater. Like when Trump used to say Rubio had small hands and stuff like that. Like, or was it the other way around? Rubio said Trump had small hands? But whatever it is. Like that kind of, that's just bollocks, you know? That's just like, that's bread and circuses for the peasants, isn't it? But this is, you've been on the inside. I let you in. And then you've kind of cashed in on that status that you have to say that basically that I'm interested in little girls. Like that's, I don't know how you could trust somebody again the same way when they've done that. So I wouldn't. I know. But then the thing is, like, they're not going to have that kind of relationship ever again, are they? Because Elon is not going to go back to the White House and manage a advisory body again. It's not going to be like that anymore. They're going to be a lot more distant. So probably it can work.
The rumor is that him and Trump and Musk are going to go on Joe Rogan together.
That's good news for Joe Rogan's ratings, isn't it?
I don't think he needs a lot of help with his ratings, but yeah.
He does get some absolute garbage on there, though. It's so dull. But to get a real, like, a couple of stars, the biggest stars in the world, like, obviously that's good news for him.
I have to admit, I rarely ever watch Joe Rogan. I see his clips sometimes when somebody clips it or something like that, but I don't, because they're long podcasts. You got to invest.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that's the thing. If it's somebody really interesting, like I watched the Trump one, like most people, I presume did, and the J.D. Vance one. I would have watched Kamala Harris if she'd bothered to get off her key step and go
I would have
there.
watched that one all day long.
And the Bernie Sanders, I've seen a couple of those ones. Mark Zuckerberg, I watched that one just because it's interesting, isn't it? You want to know. But yeah, I mean, in general, when it's just some random guy that's got his own little niche conspiracy theory, it's just like, can't be bothered with that, really. Alex Jones, though, talk about conspiracy theorists. I will watch an Alex Jones one because he's just so weird. He's so like out there that it's and Joe Rogan is so like hostile to him as well, calls him out all the time. But it's quite amusing.
Dan Albus even jumping into this. We're going to move on to our BC news here. Dan Albus jumping into this too and said there'll be no industrial carbon tax on the Chinese steel used to construct these ferries. So the BC Ferries awarded a huge contract to the Weihe shipyards in China to build 4 new vessels. What happened to Buy BC? What happened to like building our shipyards? What is going on? So lots of heat coming from this on John Rustad too, slamming Premier Eby for abandoning Canadian workers, awarding a multi-billion-dollar BC Ferries contract to Chinese state-owned enterprise. I wonder what Scott Moe thinks of this, right? Where the canola is still being blocked despite excluding China from its recent trade mission. Like, you have to wonder what's going on here.
Yeah, but have you seen on that tweet, have you looked at the profile picture, BC Ferries there? If I'm not mistaken, that's the LGBT flag. So any sort of negative comment that you might have, I think, consider it in that light. These are clearly good people because they've got that nice profile picture.
Eleanor Sturko also put something out. It says Canadian shipbuilders calls for 100% tariff on Chinese-built ships. And here you go. Like in 2024, Colin Cook, president and CEO of Canadian Marine Industries and Shipbuilding, cited a serious threat to Canada when he demanded that the Liberals impose a 100% tariff on Chinese-built ships. And here we go. Like, you know, EB stood up there telling you have to buy Canadian. Meanwhile, they go spend money with Meta to advertise for doctors in the U.S. Now look at this. This is a multi-billion-dollar contract. Think what that could do for BC's shipbuilding industry.
Well, what's so funny about this is like the main reaction from Mike Farnworth at the minute. That's the most senior minister that's come out and said something about it. His first the first words out of his mouth were, BC Ferries is an independent company.
Yeah, blame them, right? Yeah.
Is it though, Mickey?
Yeah.
Is it really? Is it an independent company
Where's
the same
the money?
way that like
where are they dipping
Apple is an independent company?
And where are they getting the money from? Exactly. Yeah, they're trying to like push it off. That's not us.
Exactly. It's very, very, very dishonest to do that. It's really
absolutely ridiculous and disingenuous at the very least. And it's just, again, ridiculous. And maybe I think it was the BC Liberals that were actually in charge when they built those Fat Cat ferries. Remember the Fast Cats that were an absolute abysmal failure? And they ended up selling them for basically scrap. And I think they were sold in the Asian market.
It was the BC Liberals as well that made BC Ferries independent, isn't it? So it's kind of, I guess they can take quite a bit of the blame for all these shenanigans. But I mean, it's the timing of this. Could it possibly be worse?
That's what I mean.
I think it's almost like they waited for the very, very worst time, and it's like announce.
So here's when EB talks about, like, I was just at the chamber event here where the finance minister talking about how, you know, we got to get investment into BC. You just gave away multi-billion dollars worth of investment because you don't even believe that our own shipyards can do this. And there you go. There you go. That in itself is right there. There's a contract.
It's not even just the money.
BC.
It's like, this is like lives. And it's also,
jobs,
it's like about having like a bank of experience as well, isn't it? Because if you don't make stuff, if there's a big gap, then you just forget. Like as a country, your people forget how to do it. And that's what's happened in places like my sad land of birth in England, which invented the modern world and the Industrial Revolution. And they can't build things anymore because they don't know how. They can't even build their own nuclear power plants, even though the British basically invented nuclear power. They don't know how to do it anymore. So they get the French to do it.
Ian's correcting us on YouTube there, and he said, no, it was the NDP, Glenn Clark, that did the Fat Cats. I call them the Fat Cats, Fast Cats. And they were a disaster. So there you go. To me, it's just like they need to reverse that decision. They need to reverse that decision, especially with Scott Moe still facing those tariffs from China. And we talked to this, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we talked about how the Canadians have one of the largest navies, and shipbuilding was one of our biggest industries. And here we are. Here's this opportunity to build billions of dollars worth of ships that will service British Columbians, and we send it to China.
It's demanded. I mean, it's not like it's
not serious. It's not a serious government.
It's not like it's going to the US or Britain or something like that, like an ally, where it's like you could say, no, this is good because we do this for them and then we'll get favors in return. It's China. Like that's what we've been told over and over again. China's our main opponent in the world. They're basically like an enemy. And if we don't beat them economically as well as in other ways, then they'll sort of eat us up for lunch. And then here we go. It's like, let's give them a massive contract.
And the health minister, Josie Osborne, says she's searching for savings in health administration She's going to review a review of British Columbia's healthcare system to cut unnecessary costs and expanding it to the 5 regional health authorities. They're going to look for ways. We pulled up the wages. There's the one place to start, right? But the administration has got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the frontline workers getting more and more discouraged. We've seen in Kelowna here 7 resignations from pediatricians here in Kelowna alone, which end up forcing closure of the pediatric ward here. And now they're looking for spending money, but they're using consultants. They're paying consultants to look for the spending cuts. Like, I don't know. You can't even make this stuff up, right? Yeah, sure. And then a Canadian man, this is from 6 Buzz TV out in Ottawa. There's a Canadian man waiting for 6 months for an MRI appointment in Canada. Finally got one on vacation in China for $190. We're going to play this clip.
My husband has been waiting over 6 months for an MRI appointment in Canada. But while we're in China, we thought, why not try the local hospital? So we walked in the general hospital with no appointment, scanned his passport, and boom, got a hospital card in seconds. We saw a doctor, got referred for an MRI and a CT scan, all in the same day. 4 hours later, we even printed the MRI film ourselves from a vending machine. And the doctor checked both scans on the same afternoon. And here's the wild part. The total cost? Around 1,000 RMB. 5.5 for the consultation, 530 for the MRI, 460 for the CT.
What do you think are the chances that when he takes that home and hands it to his own doctor, if he has one, probably doesn't, tries to submit it to the system, what are the chances that they'll that they'll take that seriously? I'd say minimal.
So I was in California recently for about a week, and I attended a longevity conference, and I was speaking with a doctor out of Florida there, a doctor in internal medicine, and I told him about one of the stories we did where there was a young lady that has a brain tumor and that she couldn't get a scan for 9 months. And he said to me that that's a death sentence. She needs to come to the US right away. He said she could get one here like the same day for $200 through proper channels.
Wow.
How can they do it? How can they do it? And we're told, I mean, I know some staff here that can't get scans. It's 6-7 months out to get a scan. And somebody's got a brain tumor or cancer or stuff like that. Catching it early is everything.
And I assume that's covered under the legislation that forbids most private healthcare in Canada. So you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it privately. I mean, that is, yeah. And
I also know, and I know another personal one was somebody again worried about cancer. And then was told about the delays, and then a friend of mine had cancer and went to Mexico, and I told her to use the same thing, and then she was on through WhatsApp. She was talking with a doctor within minutes and giving her advice back and forth on what it would cost to come down there, and it would be cheaper to stay down there, like almost on a vacation while you're doing your scans and that, and if they had to do a biopsy and all that stuff, and the prices were just like ridiculously small. And access was quick, and my friend of mine that got some cancer treatments, and he said he had access to 6 doctors while he was down there.
It's just nuts, isn't it? I mean, that clearly tells you it's a problem with the system. It's a systems problem, as a nerd might say. It needs to be reformed, doesn't it? But how on earth do you do that? And also, do the people realize, does the electorate realize that these systems need to be reformed? It doesn't seem like they do, because they keep voting for the status quo party. They keep voting for the same thing.
I would also say, though, that our national media that is state-funded, does not hold the government accountable, and they get to hide behind this stuff, and they get to say the same thing. And here's taxpayers.com here, Taxpayer Federation. They gave a grade here for our finance minister, Brenda Bailey. They gave her a D-, F for debt, C- for debt interest payments, and a C for spending increases, and a D for tax relief. Like, where was that $1,000 that was promised to British Columbians? And the excuse was, that they couldn't do it because the dollar had dropped and that the investment money was flowing out of BC. Well, the dollar is higher than it has been in like a long time. And the investment capital has been flowing out of here because nobody has any faith or certainty in British Columbia. And these stories are old. Way before Trump, we did tons of stories with Canfor. They said that BC is uninvestable because there's no certainty. And then, you know,
I mean, that debt situation is tragic, isn't it? That is just so bad. $157 billion by the end of this year for what is in effect like a regional government. It's not even the central authority. It's not the currency issuer that's doing this.
And here's some chance for some economic activity. We're building multi-billion-dollar contract for those ferries, which could generate jobs and all kinds of stuff and economic activity for welders and all kinds of people and steel makers. Remember Canadian steel? We use Canadian steel and Canadian aluminum in all our infrastructure projects. And here it goes to China. Like, this is where if Carney is really about building Canada, he should be phoning up British Columbia and say, you cancel that deal right now. And that is made in Canada. We'll see.
But you see the rationale of the CEO of BC Ferries. It was like, we didn't think about geopolitics at all. Like, that's the job of the federal government. We don't think about that. We've thought about, basically, in as many words, he said, we just thought about money, and this was the best deal.
This should be
How can we have a civilization? How can we have a serious country if people like that are in any sort of positions of authority that don't care about Canada? They don't care about this country. They just care about money.
This should be one of the biggest scandals in British Columbia right now. And it should be falling right into the lap of the NDP. And it should be like land squarely in their lap. I mean, the reason right now that there's no pipeline, when EB says the excuse is like, well, there's no proponent for a pipeline because nobody wants to invest. Well, there's no proponent because nobody wants to invest in BC because there's no certainty. Your own corporations, the BC Ferries.
Well, right? I mean, it's hard to adequately express, isn't it? Like how one feels about this. It's such a calamity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's also ever since those elbows were put up, David Eby was at the forefront, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was one of the most vocal.
Yeah.
In his condemnations of Trump and how we had to like seriously rejig the economy and all the rest of it, but not that seriously. Not seriously enough to prioritize Canadian shipbuilders over Chinese ones. Not seriously enough to accept that maybe another pipeline across BC might increase the wealth of the country.
Well, that Taxpayers Federation also did a report card for the other finance ministers, and lo and behold, Saskatchewan and Alberta did well on their report card, and BC, not so much. Along with Quebec, Newfoundland.
I mean, in defense of Quebec, they don't have to care about that sort of thing, do they? Because the rules don't apply to Quebec.
Yeah. And then this is Globe and Mail reporter, Robin Urbach, and she's kind of like, can't understand it as well. CTV reported no jail time for BC men with relatively modest child porn collection. Just a smidge, just a smidge, okay? I had Rustad's comment in there too, but I mean, why put his in there if Robin Urbach? Just a smidge is just like, so a smidge is okay, apparently.
The judiciary, they just keep giving it to us, don't they? They keep giving it to us on a plate. It's like, your meal, sir. It's come on.
So I guess the question is, what goes from a smidge to too much? Like, is it 2, 5, 6, 7? Like, where do we decide?
When it stops being relatively modest, and then it becomes what? Relatively immodest? then you're in jail, son.
And then if you get busted for lots of drugs, like, you can get out before the cops finish the paperwork. I remember talking to some of the RCMP members here. They said, you know, when they arrest these high-profile repeat offenders, and they said the frustrating part is they're filling out the paperwork, and the guy's out already before they finish the paperwork. And I think one of the sergeants told me that he arrested one guy 3 times in one day. Right?
How demoralizing that must be to think that, you know, in theory, they're risking their lives to bring those people in.
Yeah. So
to the station.
Again, some of the officers would just say, like, why bother, right? Because like, he's the one getting punished because he has to go fill out the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and also, I mean, not only that, but there's new risks, like a mob of civilians might emerge and start recording you on phones, and then publish a snippet of that makes you look bad. Then you might be investigated by the police watchdog. You might lose your job. You might get sued. You might have like your family targeted on the internet or something. It's the way that the police are treated is ridiculous, but it all ultimately stems from the justice system, really, doesn't it? And also Parliament, which is in theory supposed to tell judges what to do to some extent.
Well, let's move on to markets. And here you go. U.S. CPI comes in lower than expected. It came in at 0.1% versus the expectation of 0.2%. So there you go. And then markets. I think you're going to see a bigger reaction here. Right now, the markets are relatively muted, I guess. But they're starting to move up. And I think you're going to see that this Chinese deal. I think that the markets are waiting for that China deal. That's the big one, right? That's the trade deal. That's the big trade deal. What happens with Canada and Mexico is very small compared to what happens with China. Obviously, the two biggest economies in the world matters when they make a deal. So that is, let's see if that deal gets finalized. But again, inflation cooling in the U.S. and not so much here in Canada. As we talk about beef, there's more. I didn't put it in here today, but the beef still looking like, again, going to be a luxury in Canada. Can you imagine that? We had some of the biggest cattle ranches here, and they were convinced that they shouldn't be, raising cattle because climate change and all this stuff. And now we have, you can't even eat a steak, I guess. And the Liberals spent how much money on developing new terms, alternatives to food like crickets, and not a lot of pickup on that. So maybe Chrystia Freeland and them, when they're having their red carpet parties, should just eat crickets.
Yeah, and the rest of us, we can have a cheeseburger for Christmas, maybe.
Cheeseburger, yeah. Split it. You can split a cheeseburger.
Split it for Christmas, though, yeah. Keep it serious. Come on.
I'm actually starting, I'm going to do financial literacy here as well. I'm going to start doing that, but also looking for deals and trying to help people. Yesterday I'm going to put it up on one of our channels today. One of the deals I found was, and I would recommend you not eat ice cream on a regular basis, but if you're going to eat ice cream, McDonald's is actually in trouble too. They're lowering their menu. You're going to love this. McDonald's, your favorite place. $2 for a chocolate sundae. You can't buy a lot of stuff for $2 here anymore. So $2 for a chocolate sundae. And here's the other little hack for you right now. Free soda water at McDonald's. They won't charge you for soda water. So instead of getting the meal, don't get the meal, whatever you're getting, and just get the drink as a soda water. You get your carbonation, and because that's usually what people want. And then no sugar. No sugar, free soda water. Get yourself a free soda water and a chocolate sundae. That's a full-size sundae too, for $2. How's that?
That's using the old noggin, isn't it?
$2. You can't get much for $2, other than going to Costco.
They're giving it away.
You're going to Costco and getting that hot dog and a drink, and again, get the soda water. They have soda water there too. It's a little tab there. Gold. Gold is relatively just muted as well. Gold, like if the China thing is a done deal, gold could look, likely to get a little bit weaker here. Again, it depends on geopolitical stuff going on as well. The Bitcoin, again, knocking on the door, breaking out again. Right now, currently at 109,576, but it's knocking on the door. You can see from the chart there that that thing looks to go higher. Canadian dollar, again, looking for some direction. Again, mostly U.S. dollar weakness, but the China deal could strengthen the U.S. dollar as well. And I'm going to put in the charts for oil and that. West Texas Intermediate though up $1, and Western Canadian Select down. There you go. 52.63 for Western Canadian Select. Because who do we get to sell it to? One customer, and the one customer gets to dictate the prices. Again, liberal policies did that, and David Eby said there's no proponent and no reason to do a pipeline. And if you're a media outlet, if we got to interview the energy minister or Carney, wouldn't we press for an answer on the pipeline? Yes or no? Does it need to have this or does it need to have that? Yes or no on a pipeline? Yes or no?
Yeah. It is very hard though. It's almost like trying to talk to 6-year-old or something, isn't it, to try and get a straight answer out of Mark Carney or any of his urchins.
Let's move on to technology and transportation. Why we call transportation one of the biggest employers in the world too. Transportation is so much to so many people, and AI is obviously playing a big role in this. I'm just going to play a small clip here from a recent interview with one of the smartest finance peoples in the world, Kathy Wood of ARK Invest, and she definitely does a ton of research. She gives it all away too. So if you're interested in research, watch some of this. But this is a small clip, and this is from the CEO guy. Like he's a great podcast too, and he's got millions of subscribers as well. But he's a great interviewer, kind of a Joe Rogan on a different style.
Tesla is the largest AI project on Earth. I posted that on X, and Elon liked it, so it must be true. But it is true if our research is correct. We believe that the entire ecosystem associated with autonomous taxi networks is going to be worth $8 to $10 trillion in terms of revenue generation in the next 5 to 10 years. And if you want to put that in context, the entire GDP of the world today is about 130 trillion. So 10 trillion is going to move the needle.
So, and I say this to people, if your only decision-making skills are based on politics and you watch CBC and CTV and you listen to the liberals, you're going to hate that clip. You're going to absolutely hate that clip because you're going to hate Elon Musk. But if you're just wondering what's happening with the world and wondering where the world is going, maybe just open your mind a little bit and start to recognize what's happening, as opposed to like looking at everything through a political lens. And like we were told by this government that we shouldn't be criticizing our institutions and how unpatriotic that is. And how do we get them to be better unless we criticize them?
I mean, just to comment on that video though, if that's accurate, what she said, 10 to 12 trillion over 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's money. It's not the whole story, but in part, that's money that is being taken away from truck drivers and taxi drivers and all the rest of it, like the small business owners and workers and stuff, and landing in the pockets of shareholders and people like Elon Musk. That sounds like a pretty big wealth transfer going on there. And usually driving or something to do with, like you said, transport, that's usually like number one or number two employer in most countries, isn't it?
It is.
Like, this seems like it's a revolution that's going to like smack us all in the face very soon. And I just don't know where the chips are going to land.
I would advise people to go watch the full. I think his interviews are a couple hours too. He's really good. He's out of the UK actually too, but he actually moved to Los Angeles recently, and he's a really good interviewer. And he drives a Cybertruck, and he was scared to drive it during all the unrest as well, but he still drives it. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the full interview, the advice there to people is to figure out how to use this stuff or you're going to get frozen out. So figure out how to use it and use it as a tool to make yourself better and give yourself more opportunities. So,
but the whole point of the automation revolution is that it replaces people. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it? So what are they going to do instead? I guess that is the question of our times, really. What are people going to do with their lives? How are they going to earn money? And what's going to happen to our system as well?
And then here's some more here. Elon Musk confirms Optimus will be the biggest product. She didn't even get into Optimus. That doesn't even consider Optimus the biggest product launch in history. And Optimus, I believe, will be the biggest product thing. And you're talking about robots. I guess the goal for Tesla is to have Optimus be able to thread a needle. Now that's dexterity, because I can't even thread a needle. Can't see anymore.
Yeah, I'd say not that many people can. Like not within like an hour or something. If you keep going at it, maybe.
I remember in grade 9 I took sewing because that was the only way you could do food economics or whatever. So the only way you could get the cooking classes, you had to take half sewing, half foods, and I think I made a T-shirt in the whole semester. That's what was my accomplishment, right? Threading needle.
At least you got something out of it.
Tough slug. Yeah, it didn't fit. properly, though. But hey. And then Tesla FSE could probably beat the best human race car driver on a track today. I watched some stuff on drone stuff, and man, the drones, like I say, that's the future of the Air Force, too, is drone technology and military. So, and then the Tesla VP, Lars Morave, on the Cybercab, they're going to start building it here. Like at least some of the prototypes will be coming this summer. There you go. And then, which leads us in the transportation into the EV mandates, which are still in force here in Canada here. So I'm going to play this clip here from our favorite Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, Melanie Joly.
Mandate to start.
Yeah.
Obviously, we heard GM earlier this week say they want the EV mandate dropped. We heard it from Ford today. Is the federal government considering dropping the mandate?
So, I think our goal has been always the same, to get to net zero by 2050. We need to make sure that we take actions towards that, and that's why it was part of our vision and our plan to have EV mandates. I think also that what the government can do, which will help to increase the demand, is definitely making sure that we're bringing back EV subsidies, and that's in our platform. So we're looking forward to bring that back, and of course continuing to engage with the auto sector that is going through a very difficult time. But I think that the auto sector is reacting to the fact that there's less demand than anticipated. I think that working on the demand side through subsidies will be helpful.
Well, there's your answer. There's your answer. It's just subsidies. That's what'll do it. Not that the EV mandate's been dropped in the United States, and Ford, and this is Ford of Canada, CEO Bev Goodman saying, June 10th, that the Canada's zero-emission vehicle mandate must be repealed as consumer appetite for electric vehicle falls dramatically short of government requirements. So there you go. She's calling for it. You can put up that next slide. She's saying it needs to end. And I've heard this over and over again. And even Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, has said that, not of Ford Canada, but of Ford in general, they're going to move the production to the U.S. It's like the writing's on the wall. Like it's there. They keep here's the industry now pushing back and saying, like, you're going to punish us. I think that the penalties are like $20,000 a vehicle if they go over their quota of gas-powered vehicles. And they think, again, the Canadian government doesn't have any money, and we're going to dole out more in EV subsidies. And the same time they want people to buy EVs, they slapped a 25% tariff on Teslas, the only EV that I think is worth buying.
Yeah, and I was going to say, she said we're going to have more subsidies out there, the EV subsidies. I mean, there's a reasonable chance that that's not going to include Tesla, which would just be crazy as well, wouldn't it? But it's just, I just find this so funny, like her job title, Innovation and Industry Minister. She's being presented with a fact about the market and about the sort of the nature of this particular market of EVs, the car market. And her response is, oh, we'll just get taxpayers to pay for it then. Yeah. Taxpayers will pay for people to buy these cars, and then the industry will work. It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
That's the liberal mentality. It's just, you just open up the piggy bank, and that's how you pay the bar tabs, and that's how you get people to do this EV mandate thing when they don't want them. And here's Dan McTeague, former Liberal MP. He said even the grift receiving GMC notes forcing 1 in 5 vehicles sold through by 2026. That's what it has to be. Is EV is impractical and ridiculous, because that's when the penalties come on. If they sell more than that, you know what I mean? Like, then they get the penalties, and they're huge penalties, and the penalties keep going up. So why would they build vehicles here? You tell me.
I mean, it's not even just about those companies and the industry that we would lose Canada. It's also that this whole scheme is reliant on taxpayers' money. It's like the snake eating its own tail. This is not an economic model. But it's just appalling to see it happen. It's very depressing.
I didn't want to put it in because it was painful to watch a couple of MPs going at it back and forth. But Minister Dabzarin or whatever, she said that we do have a place in regulations that set consistently increasing targets for electrical vehicles that are going to 100%. But there's also flexibilities built within the regulation. If we wanted to have a larger conversation about that, we could speak about. What does that mean? Again, let me be clear. What does that mean?
Let me be absolutely clear.
I think that's how she started her thing. Let me be clear. I think that is in the Liberal handbook. So when you first start talking, say, let me be clear, and then be completely vague. And then just leave it at that, right? Talking about EV targets here in the US, no EV mandate, and also Trump, in his big, beautiful bill, he targets EV owners with a $250 annual fee. And Daniel Smith was talking about that too in Alberta, that's put in place yet. And then the left media went nuts on that and saying, look at it, and Alberta's even going to charge EVs a thing. And then I put out on there, like there's probably like 12 states that already do that, including California. The bastion of EVs has that already in place. And they say it's just a road tax. There you go.
And also, I don't know if it's in this big, beautiful bill. I don't know even if Republican congressmen know if it's in that. But he promised to take, what was it, tax or something like that off US-made cars when you buy them in the US? I mean, that's another thing.
You can write the payments off on your tax return, not the tax off.
Right.
If you buy a car and finance it on a US-built vehicle, you get to write off the interest payments. So that's huge.
That's another incentive,
huge.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. And I was going to put this other one, but we don't need to say this. The Model Y is driving around in Austin right now. The test vehicles without a driver in the car there. But I think the official launch now is June 22nd. And then this is the funny part. They're going to play this clip here where they looted that Apple store. And then look at the warning that comes up on here. That's good. So yeah, that stuff. They stole those iPhones, and the message on there: device has been disabled, is being tracked. Local authorities will be alerted. Good stealing. I mean, most of the stuff Apple has, you have it on yours. Like Find Me, you can find your iPhone with your watch. You can find, you know what I mean? Like you can find the devices. They have tracking devices built into them. So why are you stealing them? They're useless. It's like stealing a Tesla. What are you going to do with it? Unless you part it out. Like what can you do with it? Nothing.
It's not very nice of Apple to do that, is it? It's that's not very. That's anti-poverty from Apple, isn't it?
It's not very democratic, for sure. You went through all that trouble of stealing, and then now you're forced to give it back. And then this is where we talk about this a bit. Google is offering buyouts to search and ad employees because like you can see how that's kind of like falling off here. I mean, I rarely go to Google. You?
I mean, sometimes it's almost like muscle memory, and then I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, and then I'll go to AI. But other than that, no, I don't waste my time.
I do agree with like the specious TMX. Like maybe we should be protesting Apple for this draconian self-preservation tactic.
How dare they?
Good one. Like like when people are trying to steal stuff, they take all that extra energy and go out and steal something on a good day, and then all of a sudden people have those things in place to stop it. Like it's crazy. It's ludicrous.
But it's right though. It's like the incongruity between Apple's how it treats its own products, its own property, and then the sort of language that you hear coming out of Apple, like political language, which is more along the lines of like things like stolen land and all the sort of nonsense, and like you can't put people in prison and etc. etc. Like there is definitely an obvious contradiction there, isn't it? Which is often the case, though, isn't it, on that side of the aisle?
We're into our comedy section here, and Are You Serious? And there was a story I had in there. I don't know how it didn't come in here, but there was a guy that's connected to Mark Carney in Brookfield there that's into the home building business, on modular home building. And here you go. The clause is what Friedland wants young Canadians to afford. We tried to warn you, and that's what for that MP that said that yesterday, he doesn't want to live in a shipping container. So there you go. It's not a shipping container. It's basically a shed with a loft.
It looks like one of those trailers that like comes over the top.
Yeah, it's like
of the back of the car.
Yeah. And then we got this clip here just to, again, this is in our serious section. So these are like It's almost like that Comic-Con when you get dressed up for Comic-Con. And here's some protesters. I think this Comic-Con went to the wrong event. But here, let's play this clip here.
And this was Mexico. You can't kick us out of the land that was ours. Donald Trump! Fascism! Let our people free! ¡Suelta nuestra gente!
What's the windblower for?
Just for the fucking tear gas to blow it back at those motherfuckers. If you have a fucking blower, bring it out! Push them back! We will not do 1992 again with your fucking tanks! I was 12 then! I'm 44 now! I will die for my fucking kids! And all of these young people are here are my fucking kids! Because I'm an LA native mom! These are my fucking children you're fighting!
That's like, wow. That's a lot to unpack.
You know, when I watch videos like that, I feel pretty good about my decision not to go into psychiatric medicine. Because it's just, how on earth how's that guy even standing there? I couldn't stand there.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand there unless I was about to put her in a straitjacket or something.
And then Babylon B never disappoints. Marines deployed to another third world country full of hostile foreigners. And I think the Marines are actually going to arrive there today. They're going to be deployed today. And then they talked to a couple of sheriffs because, like obviously Newsom and Gavin Newsom, the governor, and then the Mayor Bass there saying they don't need the National Guard nor the Marines. And they're very careful not to insult the Marines, but they say they don't need them because the police have it under control. Where the police and the sheriff's department said, we need help. We need help. And they say that there's a lot more confidence when they're standing there with National Guard and or, help. So there you go. And this one here is a world record. Greta Thunberg, the first hostage victim in history whose kidnappers' only demand is that she leave.
She is such a clueless little fool, isn't she? She's just got no idea where she is or what she's doing.
I watched the interview with her, and she wouldn't answer, like, how were you treated so badly? Like, what happened to you? And she's like, I'd rather not say. But she did say at first that, like, it was so horrendous and humiliating and all that stuff. They tried to make her watch the video of the Hamas attack there, but she wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, which tells you rather a lot, I think, doesn't it, about her and people like her.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny, like that, because when she did that video and say she was about to be kidnapped there, and then she wasn't, and then they just chucked her on a plane and said, "You go home now."
It's because this entire ideology that she subscribes to, which is basically a religion at this point, it depends upon the idea that they're victims. You always have to be a victim in any kind of matchup, any kind of discussion, any sort of argument, contest, whatever it is. That religion that she is a votary of demands that side be the victim. So she just attempted to come up with victimhood, didn't she? And she abused language as well. They absolutely love to abuse language. So she used the term kidnap, which is obviously ludicrous and particularly insensitive to say that when there are dozens of Israelis who actually were kidnapped for real by terrorists who still haven't been released. But it's just, they're morally clueless, aren't they? Greta Thunberg is an absolute fool. I just can't believe that anybody listens to a word that comes out of her mouth.
I mean, you could view her as a victim and being used by the likes of, like the George Soroses and that, where she's been kind of like used as their front person for this kind of nonsense that's out there. Maybe she's angry that she has to go on a commercial flight there and that she's burning some carbon.
Maybe that worked. Whatever it was that she brought to the table, her combination, it worked when she was a kid, maybe, because then people found it. Basically, it made it hard to criticize her, didn't it? Because then the immediate response from her defenders would be, "Oh, what, you're gonna bully a child?" So it's basically, it was an attempt to try and like force through policies without actually defending them because they were too scared to defend them. That's to do with climate change. But now she's not a kid anymore, and she's not talking about climate change anymore. Now she's hanging around with anti-Semites, like actual Jew haters, and she's wearing a keffiyeh, and she's also like, what, she's 20-something now, 23? Like, it doesn't work anymore. So I guess her old supporters are gone now, and she's just left there looking like an ignorant moron.
Well, that's our show for today. We went over a little bit. We're a little long. We're trying to do it in an hour, but you know, like there was so much. There's just so much to get through. Like and it's just like there's so much going on, and it's not great. It's not great here in Canada. It's absolutely not great, especially British Columbia. So
not great anywhere really, but yeah, Canada's not doing well for sure.
You know, if we just had politicians that would be honest, just say, you're not going to build a pipeline. Just be honest with Canadians. You got elected, so just be honest now. Just be honest. And be honest with Canadians. And, you know, like, I mean, Scott Moe must be just losing his mind right now that big award for those ferries was given to China when it can't sell its canola.
Totally. Yeah. But then the problem for Scott Moe is there aren't very many Saskatchewans.
Yeah.
So they can't threaten to, you know, change their votes or anything like that. They don't have that kind of power in this democracy, do they? So they're kind of just left abandoned.
Elbows up, I guess. Maybe that's what Canadians should do, is put their elbows up against the government that won't be held accountable. Maybe that's where the elbow should go up. Anyway.
That might happen one day, yeah.
Cheers, and we're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we're going to try and find some financial stuff for you. Again, one of the things is if you're looking for a cheap snack, we're going to try and find some ways that you can save some money. It's $2 for a McDonald's chocolate sundae, and then you can get a free soda water while you're there. Tell them Iain and Jim sent you. Cheers. All right. Until tomorrow, thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now.